Good morning, Service Alliance community. Happy New Year's Eve. We're happy you're here. How you doing, Jason?
Hey, I'm good. I'm here at the office. I'm here at Jim Halpert's desk. He let me borrow it today. I'm traveling right now, so Jim, I decided to jump in their office. So it's quiet today. Nobody's here except for myself. So his desk is a little messy though. That's the only downside.
So you can steal all the pens that you want.
Yeah, my light isn't working though. I can't get it to turn on. Shoot. How's it going this morning?
I'm missing your leg lamp.
Horrible coffee this morning. It's a hotel coffee, so no thanks. I got my makeshift studio here with a desk lamp giving me light in all its aura glory. So yeah, I don't have the leg lamp, but we've got the Mo lamp. So
there you go.
There to brighten your day.
Good morning, EJ. I think EJ is the only one watching. He's the only one that's commented anyway.
Well,
everybody else is sleeping in late.
Well, here we go. Wait a second.
Yeah, you're gonna.
Okay, there we go.
You got to say hi, Jason, because being on camera is not enough.
Yeah. Happy New Year's. Happy New Year's.
Good morning, Eric.
Yeah.
Thanks for chiming in.
Now what's
right.
what do New Year's Day parades have in common with Santa Claus?
I don't know.
No one is awake to see either one of them.
That's true.
What you got? Some New Year's resolutions?
I don't normally do resolutions.
Yeah,
you either have a mindset or you don't, and it doesn't matter what time of year, right?
So what you're saying, a New Year's resolution is something that goes in 1 year and out the other. In 1 year and out the other.
Wow. I have to be careful what's coming after every question that you ask me now.
Oh yeah, I'm fired up today, baby. I got like 60 of them ready to roll,
Well, these are better than the ones we've recently had.
Yeah, these aren't Chat GPT, so I'm going to tonight. I'm going to start fixing breakfast right before midnight because I want to make some New Year's toast. So butter on it, jam.
Yeah, there you go.
I will say my sister had a good one. She told me yesterday. She goes, "Be sure to go to the bathroom and poop right before midnight tonight. You don't want to take last year's crap into 2025. Oh, yeah. Okay. That's a pretty good one.
Yeah.
Hey, Eric.
I guess
good morning,
so.
Brother.
Well, what are we talking about today?
Oh,
I don't know.
Today we're talking about difficult customers,
What's that?
I got a few good stories about some difficult customers and, how to set some boundaries, maybe build some bridges and turn those difficult customers into good ones. And also what happens if you just can't make them happy? I think that's another thing that we need to touch base on because I call them in the industry, they call them the 3%ers. No matter what you do, you're just not going to make them happy. Fortunately for us in our service business, it was less than 1%. So we did a really good job, I think, of handling those difficult customers, those difficult behaviors, and turning them into good calls without sacrificing the professionalism, right? So that's what we're talking about today. And
some of your difficult customers, if you can turn them around in the right way, they can become your biggest advocates.
100%.
But
client cheerleaders,
the hard thing is you never know which one of those difficult customers that's going to be, right?
Yeah. I literally had a Karen that was not your typical Karen. She ended up being one of our biggest client cheerleaders, and I still love her to death today. I wish I could spend more time with you, Karen, because I know you watch this occasionally. Maybe you'll come over tonight to our New Year's Eve party. So
there you go.
Yeah.
All right. let me get us prayed in, and you got some stories or something that you
Yeah,
want.
we may just take a little bit of extra time today. I'm in no hurry this morning, so we may just make this out to be an EJ type of morning where we spend an hour, hour and a half, a couple hours. We could do it. Maybe EJ could jump on with us. Who knows?
All right, let me pray us up. Dear Heavenly Father, I want to thank you for this upcoming year. Thank you for allowing us this year, and keep us safe tonight. Keep us these New Year's Eve. It gives us a lot of reflection and allowing us to reflect on what you've done for us throughout the year and allowing us to have another year after year. Lord, I just praise you. I thank you, and I pray that you'll be with all of us throughout this next year, through all the changes that we're going to see, throughout all the business changes that we're sure to see, and just give us wisdom and give us patience and give us guidance, and that we have an open heart to receive all that you've given us. It's in Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Yeah, I'm gonna use my devotional from this morning for our scripture, and maybe a hair bit long, but it's got a great point and great story to it. The scripture reference was Isaiah 48:12-19. I'm just going to hit up on 48:13. It says, "My own hand laid the foundations of the earth, and my right hand spread out the heavens." In 1939, with the recent outbreak of war for Britain, King George VI sought in his Christmas Day radio broadcast to encourage citizens of the UK and the Commonwealth to put their trust in God. Something we don't hear enough of nowadays is having our politicians say, hey, you need to put more trust in God. So I thought that was a pretty good thing. He was quoting a poem that his mom just found super precious, and that said, "Go out into the darkness and put your hand into the hand of God. That shall be to you better than light and safer than a known way." He didn't know what the new year would bring, but he trusted God and to guide and uphold him in these anxious days ahead. The image of God, God's hand appears so many different times in the Bible, including the book of Isaiah here. Through Isaiah, God called his people to trust that he, as their creator, the first and the last, in 12, would remain involved with them. So as he says, "My own hand laid the foundations of the earth, and my right hand spread out the heavens." They should put their trust in him and not to look to those less powerful. So whatever we face as we look into this new year coming, we can follow the encouragement of King George here and Prophet Isaiah to place our hope and trust in God. I hope those watching are listening what I just said. Place your hope and trust in God as you go into the new year. And I'm preaching to the choir too, because I needed to hear this a lot this morning. Then, as we do that, our peace will be like the river, our well-being like the waves of the sea, as it says in verse 18. So as you consider this new year, maybe consider what situations, what relationships that you could trust God in more. So that's my little bit of a devotional, the shortened version of it anyway. So it was a good devotional. I'm not sure.
Well, I think that's a good segue. It's talking about the relationships portion of it.
Mm-hmm.
When we're dealing with difficult people.
Yeah. Difficult customers. All right. So one of our prompts was maybe tell a story about a difficult customer and how you were able to turn it into a great call. So, as an electrician, this one was kind of funny as I was thinking about it. It wasn't, I don't know if it was necessarily super difficult, but it was funny. So I had this call one time from a customer who was convinced that their lights were flickering because their house was haunted. How many times as a service technician you went into a house and they're like, My appliance is haunted. Um, so they were you could tell they were visibly nervous. The funny thing was is that she was holding the sage stick and muttering about spirits messing with the wires. So I politely explained, "Hey, I'll investigate the issue. I'll let you know if it was something less supernatural." And so as I worked, the homeowner stayed real close, whispering, "If you see anything spooky, just yell. I'll throw some sage that way." And it didn't take long to find the culprit. They just had an overloaded circuit caused by an old breaker. So I showed her, the evidence, explaining it looks like your ghosts are really just an old breaker and some wiring that's had enough. So the homeowner laughed in relief and said, "So you're saying I've been saging my circuit box for no reason?" And so I replaced the breaker. I upgraded a few connections to prevent some future issues. And by the end, she was just thrilled and no longer scared that her house was haunted. So as I packed up to leave, she handed me the sage stick and she said, "Just in case you ever run into a real ghost." So, this call, it could have went super sideways. It could have went really bad, with a skeptical or stubborn customer. But, approaching it with a little humor and professionalism, I was able to turn it into a really good, memorable, and positive experience for both of us, right? So, difficult ones, I've got difficult ones out the wazoo. I could tell you stories upon stories about. Maybe I'll share a couple more here later. But I just remember that one, and I remember it being kind of funny because of the sage,
Yeah, that's funny. Here's one that I would love to hear more about this story. Eric says,
Oh
I had
boy.
a customer that thought I put a bomb in her washer.
Wow. That's crazy.
Wow. Hopefully it was just a bath bomb.
Yeah, there's a soap bomb.
Yeah.
That's funny. What about you? What about a difficult customer you had and how you dealt with it?
Oh my gosh. I've had so many. so many. Not so many in the marketing industry I'm in now.
Yeah.
But back when I was in the service industry, running the body shops, people literally walked in there with an attitude. They didn't want to be at a body shop. They've had a traumatic experience, or it's just an inconvenience because it wasn't their fault or whatever the case may be. They just walk in and they don't want to deal with you, and they walked in with preconceived notions that you're just going to screw them, and not fix their vehicle right. So it's that whole I guess blue collar syndrome, as I always called it. It's people genuinely used to look down. It's not as bad as it used to be, but back 20 years ago, people looked down on the trades. And they thought of you as beneath them. If they weren't in some kind of trade and you were. And it was that part of it was very difficult, and you had to redeem yourself by being professional, doing a good job, and kind of changing their mindset and talking them through a lot of things and being helpful. And they didn't understand what the processes were and everything, but once you start explaining it, it gets better. And I went to work for Allstate after a while. I left the collision industry, and I didn't want to go to work for Allstate. I didn't care for the company,
Really? But you're in good hands with Allstate.
No, not from the collision side, and seeing how they nickel and dime their customers to death. But anyway, I went to work for Allstate ultimately. And I'm like, yeah, let me give it a shot. Maybe I'll learn something, right? And I went into the interview, and there was a guy there that I didn't know who was the big boss, and another guy that I had known for probably 15 years. wasn't sitting in there, maybe even 20 years I knew him. And he was my re-inspector when I was in the body shop. And I'm like, and he was a tough nut, man. This dude was tough. He was fair, but tough, but I got along with him.
Yeah.
And I walk in and he's sitting there and I'm thinking, oh my God, I don't know what this is going to be like. And he was totally cool, fair, all the questions he asked. But then his boss just sat there listening the whole time as the other guy interviewed me.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, I looked at his boss and I'm like, you're not asking very many questions. Like, are you here to observe? You know, Greg asking me, and he says, no, I literally just have one question for you. He says, tell me when you had a difficult customer.
Yeah.
And I had something, and I told him the story about how I had a hard time satisfying this customer. And a couple of things legitimately were our fault. And he's like, well, tell me how you handled it, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I go through all this, and then he says, I got one more question. What were their names? And I was like, why is this important? You know, so I said, their names were, you know, his name was this, and, you know, told him, I can't remember it now, but the first and last name. And I said, and his wife's name was whatever it was. And I said, and they had a 3-year-old boy. I remember that, you know, the cutest little kid. And he sat back and he goes, now, were you able to get everything handled, you know, and satisfy? I said, we handled everything. We handled it. I thought with perfection, you know, as best. I made this as best I could. And I said, I even sent them a gift card to a nicer restaurant, you know, as a, you know, we're sorry this happened, you know, and I took ownership of it. Well, unbeknownst to me, the other guy that was in there interviewing, it was one of his insureds.
Yeah.
And he knew about the whole situation, but wasn't involved.
Yeah.
You know, from behind the desk type thing. And he says, I know this customer. I talked to them multiple times and heard all the complaints about you guys.
Yeah.
And he says, it's funny that you bring that one up because he called us back and sang your praises at how you handled it. And I'm like, oh, I didn't know that. That's, you know, it kind of made me feel good. But
I think the key point there,
that right there got me the job.
Yeah. Understanding the root cause of it. Right.
Yeah. But it was taking that extra mile to go above and beyond and basically, pardon my French, owning your shit, right? You have to own your stuff. And when you screw up, but you have to handle it and you have to fix it. And I never thought that this person would ever sing our praises or let alone call the insurance company and actually tell them that we handled it well.
Yeah.
Because he was quite a jerk the entire time that I had to deal with him, you know, from the moment he stepped in. So
understanding the root cause of it's pretty important. You know, like you said, make sure you listen. You know, we're going to talk about a little bit. I put a comment here if you want to share that one. Do you have a company policy for dealing with unacceptable customer behavior? So do you have an SOP for this? Right? If you don't, we're going to share a little bit of one with you and just create one. So type yes or no in the comments below if you've got one. You know, I think the first part of this is just maintaining professionalism. Simply just remain calm, remain courteous, remain respectful, regardless of the customer's behavior. You know, usually active listening is always good. I know us as men, especially married men, might have a hard time using active listening to understand the customer's concerns, especially without interrupting, because typically we want to just jump in there and be like, all right, but you can't do that, some good de-escalation techniques. Speak in a calm, steady tone, right? Avoid raising your voice or appearing confrontational. I tell you, somebody who does a good job of this, go look up Gene Slade, Slade. He's got a ton of great videos online. And I tell you what, it's almost a boring monotone voice that he uses, but it's almost such a calming, soothing voice, and it's not that he's necessarily trying to create a friend. He's trying to come off as a professional who cares. And I really appreciate his approach to some of his training that he's got. So go check out some of his short videos he's got, and you'll understand and you'll hear that nice, calming voice that, Mrs. Jones, this is what I can do for you today. And that's what I think is going to be the best.
And don't forget to smile.
Yeah.
A lot of people just forget to smile. When
smile at the right time is
the right
important.
time. Otherwise, it looks like a smirk. But
Mrs. Jones, you're gonna have to spend a lot of money today. That's not a good time.
Yeah, it's gonna be great.
Empathy, I'm telling you, empathy can go a long way with a customer's frustration. Never use the words, like, well, I'll skip that, but understand that it's frustrating, right? And keep that tone. Miss Jones, I understand this is frustrating, and I'm here to help resolve the issue. One of the things I always do when I'm trying to build my own credibility is, I've been doing this for over 25 years. I've been in a lot of homes. I've worked in thousands of homes, just like yours. I've dealt with this situation before, and I know if anybody can take care of this today, it's going to be me. How much confidence does that build when I'm using that kind of tone and that kind of empathy, right, with the customer? So, and always redirect the focus to the solutions, not the problem. Like I just did there. I wasn't talking about the problem. I was talking about how I am the right person to fix this problem, right? So you're coming into their house. They don't know you. I mean, majority of calls is a brand new call. So they don't have a clue who you are or if you can actually fix the problem. So setting that tone right from the very beginning, that I am the right person for the job, that'll really help them out so much.
Now let's flip that. You've gone out on the job and you made a mistake. You didn't diagnose something properly, or you just made an honest mistake and screwed something up, whether it's a lack of knowledge or just your head just you weren't on your A game.
Yeah, it happens.
Now, how do you convince that customer that you're still the right person?
Well, I tell you,
now they're going to lose faith in you.
I had this situation just happen to me with an appliance repair company. And we ended up calling a different appliance repair company. And I asked him that same situation. I'm like, hey, if this is misdiagnosed, what happens? And he just sat back for a second. He goes, well, Jason, I tell you what, our company has and I forgot what kind of guarantee he called it. He goes, but the guarantee is this. He goes, if by chance I did misdiagnose this, you don't pay for any labor for anything else with this problem at all. And he just shut up. And I'm like, oh, okay. So what, do I just got to pay for the part or something? He goes, exactly. I'm like, well, that's actually pretty good. I mean, I get it, but especially in an appliance, and the electrical world is the same way, but in appliance, there's going to be several things. And from riding with some of you guys out there, I've learned that, you've got to replace this to replace this to replace this. And sometimes you replace this and that's not it. And then you have to go back to the customer. Well, Mrs. Jones, this wasn't the problem. In my line, here's what I've got to do, and sometimes it fixes a problem and it finds another bad problem. So, it's just being upfront, being transparent. And again, as I always say, being that honest service expert, right? Not that selling technician. That's the thing we don't want to come off as.
Right.
Setting those clear boundaries, especially when you get a customer that, maybe they're really aggressive from the start. Just say, set the tone. Ms. Jones, I'm here to help. I need us to communicate respectfully to resolve this issue, though. If this behavior continues, I might have to, call a manager, or I might have to step away temporarily so you can gather yourself. I've had those difficult customers and those difficult conversations before as well.
Yeah.
Documentation.
I'm sure a lot of us have.
Yeah. Keep notes. If you end up having that difficult conversation with the customer, make sure you put it in your notes. All of our softwares now, they've got that section. If you're still pen and paper, so be it. Write it down on a piece of paper. Make sure that gets filed away in their manila folder in your filing cabinet.
Documentation is so key.
Yeah.
In these types of situations.
Yeah. The nature of the problem, steps you took to resolve the issue, the customer behavior, if it impacted that service visit. If you're that one-man shop, you've got everything. But if you're a technician, watching this, be sure to report that to your manager, your boss, your supervisor, so they can immediately follow up, or maybe they have to intervene, right? So.
Exactly. I mean, documentation goes a long way in this situation, especially if they call back and maybe you handled it and you got through it and you think everything's fine, right?
Yeah.
And you've kind of turned that situation around, but they were abusive, language threats or just whatever they were doing at the time.
Yeah.
And you don't really want to work for that customer again, right? But say 2 years from now, that same customer calls again. No one's going to remember that situation. Even you might not fully remember it, if you're really busy and you just kind of put it out of your mind. So having that documentation is very helpful, because, as you could have been a one-man show, and now you've got a couple of employees, right? And a CSR. And if you didn't document that, how are any of the rest of them going to know? You may be totally out of the loop, and your CSR gets that call. And now it's like, okay, we had this issue with you before. Are we going to have the same type of an attitude if we come out? Because that's not a situation that we want to be in. And I think it's perfectly acceptable and okay to set those expectations and set those boundaries right up front on the phone call.
Yeah.
Especially if there's previous history, right?
Yeah.
So
I got another story I think fit good in here. So I got a call about a call to go out to a customer's house. They had a breaker trip, and this was on, I can't remember if it was Thanksgiving or if it was like Christmas Eve. I remember they had a lot of people over, and anyway, the breaker had tripped, and they were just fuming because it kept tripping. And so from the moment I arrived, the homeowner was just obviously clearly upset, pacing and venting about how their day was ruined because of this faulty wiring. So as I started troubleshooting, I quickly realized that they just had an overloaded circuit, because they were running a lot of like crock pots on the same circuit. So, I calmly explained, what had happened, but they just were not happy with the answer I was giving them. They were just convinced that the system was just poorly designed, and they demanded to know why this kept happening. And so instead of getting defensive, I saw an opportunity. So I literally took the time to walk them through their electrical panel. I explained how their electrical system worked. I showed them how the electrical wiring distributed power across the circuits. I walked them through the circuits in their kitchen. I recommended a few upgrades. I ended up adding a couple of extra dedicated circuits around their kitchen countertops, and showed them how to put the different higher power appliances on these circuits so they wouldn't have this issue again. So by the end of the visit, their frustration had turned to appreciation. She told me, she goes, no one has ever explained this stuff to me before. And, she agreed to the upgrades, which not only solved their immediate problem, but also improved their system's overall reliability, right? So what started as a really intense call ended with a super happy customer who not only felt heard, but also better understood their home's electrical system. And I got a great review out of it and a few referrals too. So, taking the time to educate and to empathize with the customer can turn a negative situation into a positive, memorable experience, right?
Customer education is huge.
It's huge.
Huge. And speaking of that, right down below, that is our next mastermind on the 11th. We normally do our masterminds on the third Saturday, but this time it's going to be on the second due to some scheduling conflicts. But make sure if you're a master or an all access member, make sure you're in that one. It's going to be good. TK is going to lead that up. But getting back into our topics, I love it's so easy to turn most negative situations into a positive. It really is. And it's all in the way you approach it, right?
Yeah.
And I like what Andrew said here. Somehow admitting your mistakes gives you more credibility. And even when it's not your mistake, don't lay blame elsewhere and just shove that off. Turn that focus instead of blame into solution. All right, this is the problem. It doesn't matter how it happened. Now let's worry about getting to the solution. And you can totally redirect people's focus away from the problem and onto the solution. And that's a much more positive way because they see a light at the end of the tunnel. So I think that's the easiest way to redirect all of that. So when do you walk away? When do you look at a situation and say, you know what, this one is just turning worse and worse and worse, and it's not gonna be good. This is not a good situation.
Yeah, I got another story on that one too. So I went to this customer's house because they were just having issues, like some major issues, breakers tripping. They had old knob and tube wiring in there, and they were fuming from the moment that I arrived. It was a brand new house, right? Like brand new customer for me, just old wiring, old house, a lot of concerns. And so, the homeowner was clearly upset. They were pacing and venting about how their day was ruined because of all this wiring issues. So as I started troubleshooting, I realized they just, like I said, a bunch of old wiring. So I calmly explained what was going on. They just weren't happy with the answer, though. They were convinced the system was it was perfectly fine the way it is. They demanded to know why this kept happening. They just knew way more than I did. They were talking about how expensive electricians are, just being sarcastic, and just the thing that got me is they insisted they knew more about the issue than I did, but yet they called me. So despite their attitude, like I said, I stayed calm, professional. I explained my findings. The home's wiring is outdated, posted a safety hazard. I explained to them what the National Electrical Code is and why we need to update. I mean, I've always done a really good job of providing solutions and explaining, and I let them know it's going to require significant work to bring it up to code and safety and to make it safe. So as soon as I started mentioning these repairs, the customer just exploded. They accused me of trying to upsell them. They demanded I just fix it cheap. And, I calmly explained to them, our company's policies and that cutting corners on electrical work is just not what I do. And it's unethical. It was dangerous to leave them with these concerns. When it comes to knob and tube, I don't mess with it, right? We replace it. That's just one of my policies. So they just refused to listen. They came more hostile. They threatened to blast my business online if I didn't do it the way they wanted it, nice and cheap. I could have, at that point, I could have had them sign off on the paperwork saying that they understand the safety concerns. But to me, my reputation means more. And if they were to have an electrical fire because of me messing with this old knob and tube, I wouldn't have felt right about it, right? So at this point, I realized this wasn't a situation I could resolve without compromising my integrity, my company's reputation,
and the customer safety,
their safety, especially, So I firmly but respectfully said, I'm sorry, but I just don't think that we can proceed if we're not on the same page about doing this safely and correctly. It's in everyone's interest, but that I step away from this job. Here's a couple of people that I can refer that may work on this type of stuff. So, I documented everything that happened in House Call Pro. I'm talked with Shayna about this, about that if there's any follow-up calls that they call, that just to refer them to these other electricians that I recommended. And sure enough, they left a horrible negative review because I didn't want to do their cheap work. But because I handled the situation professionally, I was able to respond even on the review in a calm manner, transparently, explaining even my commitment to safety and quality in the review. Even from that review, I've had several calls saying, man, the way you handled even that review, that's why I'm calling you. They gave you a negative review, but because the way you handled it, I'm calling you as an electrician because I want that kind of electrician.
Yeah.
Walking away, it wasn't easy, but it reinforced my reputation as someone who prioritizes integrity and safety over cutting corners, right? So sometimes the best decision is knowing when to say no. I think this is a really good story that it highlights the importance of standing firm on your principles, right? And even in the face of conflict, it shows how protecting you, your team, even the customer safety, even though they think you're not protecting it, is always going to be the right choice. Always.
Yeah, but this is where policies and procedures come into play right here. This is where it's much more critical to have a policy in place that your entire team understands and that you've given your team members the empowerment to make that decision.
Yeah.
And when they walk away from something and you're wondering why, they felt uncomfortable, because at some point something went really wrong. They started getting bad vibes and things just didn't feel right. And you need to trust your instincts in those cases every single time and just walk away.
Yeah.
There's so many times that you could go into a customer's home to fix a washer or dryer and they've got shoddy electrical. I mean, we've seen it in our group multiple times.
Oh yeah.
Right. And it's like, okay, at what point does something else need to be fixed before you can address the issue with the machine? And it could be plumbing, electrical, whatever. And I truly believe that if a lot of people don't want to hear that they have to spend even more money beyond fixing the machine. And now you've just told them that you have to delay fixing the machine until the root cause is probably, that caused the problem needs to be fixed, and they have to spend even more money. But this is why I feel it's so important to have relationships with other tradesmen so that you can refer people and work all that out and have a resource to actually help them. I'm sorry, Mrs. Jones, this is what needs to be done. I'm not an electrician. I'm not a plumber, but I have XYZ plumbing or XYZ electrical that can help you out. Do you have your own trusted service provider? And if you don't, I can give you their information. And we've worked with them in the past, and this is the experience that we've had with them. And we can set it up to where we can work with them and we can come in right behind them and get your issue resolved once they get their issue resolved. And
oh my goodness,
things like that normally help a lot.
Sorry, I'm reading some of the comments.
Let me see what Dan's got
Right,
here.
so, you know,
It's
to
long.
the question before, do you have a company policy, right? So
Yes.
Eric says, no, we don't have an SOP for difficult customers, but we will now. Kinda, they are dealt with by email almost exclusively. Andrew, somehow admitting mistakes give you more credibility. Saul, or go to Saul's comment first.
Let's pull Saul
Being
up.
an electrician is easy. Just put these two wires together and watch my hair flare up. Sounds like a Ric Flair. Woo!
Yeah.
My neighbor's probably like hating me right now in this hotel room.
That's okay.
Ric
Dan
Flair,
says
man.
a real annoyance is when another company or three have been out, changed out parts, and the problem was an installation issue.
Yeah.
I hear that. Amen. The
Yep.
customer is human by now, and the factory won't pay you.
Yeah.
Because it's actually an installation issue. We just had one of those, had to fire the customer, and now we're having to explain to the factory why the customer is ticked, and we won't go back out. Yeah, that's I mean, sometimes you have to draw the line and say, you know what, this isn't our problem. You know,
right.
This is the problem with a lot of these warranty companies and the factory warranties. They will just send a bunch of people out until it's fixed.
Yeah.
And do it as cheaply as possible, right? And, you know, some of the biggest companies are some of the worst. And, you know, they're getting parts off of eBay or wherever they're getting. I've seen some posts recently about some very large companies just doing some really, really weird, bad things.
Going back
as cheaply as possible.
Going back to the guarantee I told you that appliance repair company gave me, that is a great, a good response for that would be, I completely understand how frustrating this situation must be for you. Having multiple companies out, replace parts, not solve the root issue, man, that could be just completely inconvenient, but not also that, but costly, right? Empathy, use empathy. From what I can see, the problem appears to be this, right? It appears to be related to the original installation, which might explain why previous repairs didn't fully resolve it. Unfortunately, since the issue stems from an installation and not a product defect, the factory typically doesn't cover these types of repairs. So that said, I want to help you get this resolved once and for all. I'm going to guarantee my work. So if you have any more issues with this, I want to come back and I want to fix it. No labor, right? I'm going to ensure that the work is done correctly and thoroughly, so you don't have to keep dealing with this. I'll provide a clear explanation. You see what I'm doing? I'm using that, and empathy goes a long way. And guarantees, make sure your guarantees are solid. I think that's a huge part of it to resolve that issue and get that. I think if you use those type of words and that type of tone, I think you'll have a good outcome. I really do. Just try it.
Sometimes the customer isn't the problem. Sometimes they're just caught in the middle. And I want to address this comment that Mike, the repair guy, says. Good morning. I really hate when you have a dryer that has a problem with the outlet not getting 220. You explain to the customer, then an electrician comes out, hate those guys, and they blame the dryer.
Yeah.
Here's what I would do in those situations. And it's such an easy thing to do. If you're there and you're diagnosing this and you have to explain all of this to the customer and actually show them, this is why I believe you're having a problem with and this is why I believe it's the electrical. Why aren't you pulling out your phone, making a video explanation of this and walking through that on the video send that to the customer, and now that customer has a video to show the electrician.
Yeah.
And the electrician would understand the situation a lot better. It almost as if you were there explaining it to them yourself. So
Sounds
why
like the
wouldn't you
electrician
do
just
that? I
sucks.
think that's a very simple thing to do.
Yeah. No, I agree. Video goes a long way. There's a lot of hate on electricians, but we can go back the same way.
Yeah. And then you go
But no,
back
that's
out
great.
to the
That's great
service
advice, though.
and you check the outlet again, and there's still no 220.
Yeah.
Maybe it's only 118 or 119.
Yeah.
I don't know. 210, 220, it's all the same.
No, 220, 221, whatever it takes.
Whatever it takes.
No, that's great, Mike. Yeah. And that's a great follow-up, having that video. Video, pictures. There's been times before going same topic, a little off, but when you're talking with Mrs. Jones and Mr. Jones isn't there, and she's like, well, I need to talk with Mr. Jones. Okay, well, let's get him on the phone. Well, he's not available. He's at work. Okay, I tell you what, break out your phone. You can record me. You can use the voice records, or you can use your video. I'm fine with that. Then go through your presentation with your solutions. That way, that evening, she has a video. She has a recording, or vice versa. He has a recording of what everything was discussed and said. And that way, the other decision maker has your tone, has your explanations. How awesome is that? So video recordings. Oh, yeah.
Like Mike says, I have to try that. I usually just show the customer my voltmeter so that they see there's no power. But yeah, I like that. Take a video. Yeah. All right. Here's the problem. Your customer doesn't know what you know. They don't know how to translate that. Yep. It's all foreign language to them. So why would you trust your customer to relay the information to someone else who is also technical and expect that translation to come through clear? Yeah, it's a complete, it just doesn't make sense. So take the customer out of it and just make them a delivery person at that point. And all they have to do is deliver the video, and that's it. You can literally ask the customer to take the video on their own phone. Say, hey, I'm going to explain this. Would you mind recording me on your phone so that you have this to readily show your electrician or plumber or whoever the case may be? But I think that goes a long way, and it's so simple, and you have to do it anyway because you're going to show the customer all of this anyway. So it doesn't take you any extra time.
Yeah. So, all right, I know we gotta kind of calm this down. I got one more funny story about some haunted light switches. So I showed up at this house one time. The customer was convinced that their smart light switches were haunted, and they had installed them themselves, and the lights would just randomly turn on and off. If you ever dealt with smart switches, this can happen. There's some stuff behind the scenes. So the guy greeted me at the door. He was holding a flashlight like a weapon, whispering, "They're messing with me, man." I think he'd been smoking a little pot. "They're messing with me, man." So I started troubleshooting, and every time that I flipped a breaker, he'd jump and yell, "Did you see that? They're fighting back." And so it didn't take long to figure out that his do-it-yourself installation had just created a really bad wiring issue, causing the switches to just communicate with the most chaotic way possible. So I explained the issue. He laughed nervously and said, "So it's not ghosts?" And I couldn't resist. I replied, "Not unless they're licensed electricians." So nice. I fixed the wiring, and as I was packing up to leave, he handed me a 6-pack of what's the Wisconsin beer that you get up in Wisconsin? I was afraid. Spotted Cow. So he handed me a 6-pack of Spotted Cow beer, and he said, "Man, thanks for exercising." Or what's the word when you get rid of ghosts? Exorcist. Yeah, exorcist. Yeah, thanks for exercise. I can't remember the word I'm trying to say there, but yeah. Thanks for getting rid of the ghost in my haunted house. So that was hilarious one that I'll never forget too. You know. So
Well, good morning, EJ.
Good morning. I heard Jason's invite in the beginning of the show that maybe I should come on, and he's talking about going an hour. So I thought maybe I would come in and
we got 6 minutes left.
So you literally waited until he said we got to wrap this up to show.
Right.
So if you want to wrap up, I can take the next hour.
Hey, there you go. Yeah.
I'm just teasing. I'll tell you what. I wanted to see you guys' face and talk to you personally.
Oh, shucks.
How y'all doing?
I'm good.
We're doing great.
I really love the Tuesday show.
Thanks.
And
It's the best show of the week.
It is the best show of the week. You know,
the absolute best show of the week.
Hey, EJ, what did Adam say to Eve on December 31st?
Oh Lord, I don't know.
Happy New Year's, Eve.
That's so bad.
All right.
Well, maybe we should just shut this down on that right now.
Oh, wait. We got a good one from Saul. He's got a couple of jokes here. Saul says, what do lawyers wear to court? Lawsuits. I'll give you that one. And since we're hammering electricians, Saul says, what do electricians call a power outage? A current event.
A current event.
Oh, wow.
Nice.
Okay, EJ, you got a short story you can tell us about a difficult customer you turned into a good situation? Maybe even a funny one?
Oh man, you put me on the spot. I've got a ton of them, but
yeah,
I ain't got any right now. I'll tell you one thing is, it's not a story, but I'll back up what you guys are saying. You know, the flesh in me, the natural EJ, before the Lord came in, I want to be right. And if you raise your voice or talk to me funny, like that story you were telling about the knob and tube, where they're just kind of belittling you, and they don't even know you, it just makes me want to attack. It's fear that somebody is making you look or feel a certain way, and if you understand that they're in the same spot but on the other side. So that person that's flipping out like that, they're fearful.
Yeah.
They're angry as a defense mechanism because they just bought this house and they find out they probably put all they had into getting the house.
Yeah.
And now they realize that it's a freaking death trap.
Yeah.
And it's going to cost a fortune to make it right. And all they want is somebody to just get them by. Like it made it this long, just make it work, right? And they're going about it all wrong and to the wrong guy. But when you take that empathy and don't take it personal is one of the biggest things that I've learned.
Yeah.
And you got to be confident and stand your ground. Talk to them in that tone you said. And, you know, that calming reassurance in some other situations that you got it. Hey, this ain't even a problem anymore.
Yeah.
You called the right guy. I got you.
Yeah.
You know, just relax. Now, the knob and tube story, they ain't going to take that.
No.
So
it was a very expensive repair. Yeah.
You know, when you don't take offense and you can respond appropriately,
Yep.
It really changes the results of it. The rest of the story is based on how you respond.
Yeah. I got one more story for you. Since, you know, I'm saying all these electrical stuff and you guys are hammering me as an electrician, I got one about an appliance repair company that tried to diagnose the issue over the phone and they didn't get it right. You want to hear this one?
No.
And no, he's like, no. All right. So I got a call from a customer. They were just really irate about their dryer wasn't working. And they were
I thought you were talking about your refrigerator that I diagnosed.
No. Well, they were convinced that it was just a lemon because they had called an appliance repair company, and the appliance repair company said, well, it's probably just a bad dryer. Horrible appliance repair company. None of them that's in our group. All right. I'll just say that.
Yeah.
So when I got there, they were saying that it was a voltage issue. You know, we were talking about the voltage issue a while ago. All right.
Mhm.
So let's get down to it. The dryer was not heating correctly. What? Yeah. When I got there, they launched into just full blown rant about, you know, these companies don't make things like they used to, and, you know, how they'd spent hours Googling the issue. So I started looking at it, started my inspection, was checking things. Everything seemed fine, you know, from an electrical standpoint. And I just simply asked them, I said, hey, have you checked the lint trap? And they rolled their eyes at me. And he said, yeah, of course I did. What do you think? I'm an amateur? So what did I do? I pulled out the lint trap. And it looked like it hadn't been cleaned since the Bush administration. I mean, it was bad. So the customer turned red. He's like, after this long pause, he was like, well, I thought the lint just went somewhere else. Like, so I cleaned out the lint trap real good, tested the dryer. Guess what? It heated up. It worked like a charm. So
Yeah.
the customer said, well, I guess I should have Googled that. So, you know, we ended up laughing, had a good time. And he offered me some cookies, you know, and that his wife had just made. And, you know, it was a good situation, right? But hey, appliance repair guys aren't always right. Electricians aren't always right either. Just gonna say that. So,
And the customer is not always
Now,
right.
and you know that further explains the mission that we are on as the Service Alliance Group, and everybody that contributes in this is elevating the industries.
yeah.
You know, there's a lot of amateurs out there calling themselves professionals and not even really trying. Like, if you
Yeah.
can Google it, Google it.
Yeah.
But they called you to fix it. They called you to solve their problem.
Yeah.
And if you're giving up that easy and you ain't even checking the lint filter,
They didn't even go out there. They didn't even go out there to diagnose it in person.
yeah. I mean, that's how you make money.
Yeah.
Is you got to go.
Laziness
You got to
right
show
there.
up.
Gotta show up. I like it. Well, guys, it's been a great one. EJ, glad you could come on for 7 minutes, and maybe we can do an entire show sometime. It'll go on for an hour and a half if me, you, and Mike are on there together. So,
Absolutely.
Heck yeah.
It'd be a good hour and a half.
hey, if you found something useful today, be sure to go pay the fee, which is just simply to go like, share, subscribe to the Service Alliance Group, Appliance Marketing Pros, and My Office Help on your different favorite social media and YouTube. That helps us out quite a bit. And it don't cost you a thing, right? So, and then we got that mastermind coming up. Mike, you want to talk about that again?
Customer education. All access members have free
Mike's
access
muted.
to it.
So,
I'm muted.
we can't hear
No.
Mike. I'll do it. The mastermind,
hear you.
January 11th. Customer education.
I think EJ just wanted to talk some more.
Oh, could you hear Mike? I
Yeah,
couldn't
you
hear.
could hear. Oh,
Yeah,
boy.
am I coming through?
Yeah, sometimes.
Okay. All right.
All right,
I'm
one
having
last
some issues with my mic.
dad joke. What did the woman say when she was offered a raisin on New Year's Eve? No thanks. I already have a date.
That was a bad one.
Hey, y'all have a great day. Happy New Year's. I'll see you next year.
Bye, everybody.